I'm the one making the decision, and Jay's supportive of it, so it's me. But we really believe in it, and time will tell if I'm right.
The second pick will be made by the San Antonio Spurs, and that means that the number one pick
no way!
in the 2025
This shit is
NBA
rigged!
draft goes
This
to
shit is
the
so
Dallas
rigged!
Mavericks.
The NBA draft lottery officially concluded, and it is without a doubt the most controversial NBA draft lottery we have ever seen in NBA history. I mean, there is no way Adam Silver is beating the rigged allegations, but at the same time, it gives us a lot to talk about. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications for the latest NBA news. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We've been incredible to start the playoffs, hitting on 3 picks to make over $400, and it's gonna get better from here. Use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more on Prize Picks, or just click on the link in the description down below and get my picks through my Instagram at @TheFlightMike. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? During the 2025 NBA trade deadline, the Dallas Mavericks did the unthinkable, trading Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to the Los Angeles Lakers in return for Max Christie, Anthony Davis, and a 2029 first-round pick from the Lakers. At the time, the Dallas Mavericks were memed for this decision. And honestly, the follow-up press conferences didn't really paint the Dallas Mavericks in the best light. I mean, you could tell that Jason Kidd literally wanted to end his general manager during this press conference where they announced the trade.
If he was going to be able to decide make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer.
And things would get even worse for the Dallas Mavericks. They would go through a series of injuries that were so bad that there was a point where the Mavericks even had to consider forfeiting games. They lost Kyrie Irving to a torn ACL, which meant that they were going to lose him for the majority of next season. Anthony Davis barely played until the end of the season, and the Dallas Mavericks, who presumably made this trade originally so they could potentially make a push to the NBA Finals this very year, ended up with a lottery pick. And to be honest, if you took a look at the teams that had the best chances at the NBA draft lottery, this was probably the best situation for the NBA to make the best teams even better or to create new storylines and narratives. Going into this NBA draft lottery, the Utah Jazz had the worst record in the NBA, followed by the Washington Wizards, Charlotte Hornets, New Orleans Pelicans, and Philadelphia 76ers. The Dallas Mavericks had a 1.8% chance at getting the number 1 overall pick, and the San Antonio Spurs had a 6% chance at the number 1 overall pick. The Spurs had a 26.3% chance at a top 4 lottery pick, and this was just very shady. I mean, Brian Windhorst for some reason was able to call the Dallas Mavericks winning the NBA draft lottery.
Imagine if it ended with Nico Harrison jumping into the top 4. Now, wouldn't that be interesting?
And if you just look at the history of the NBA, this doesn't necessarily look so good for them. In 2010, LeBron James left the Cleveland Cavaliers for the Miami Heat. 1 year later, the Cavaliers won the 2011 NBA draft lottery and were able to select Kyrie Irving. 1 year later, the New Orleans Pelicans got Anthony Davis once Chris Paul was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. 2 years after that, in 2014, the Cleveland Cavaliers got the number 1 overall pick, presumably so they could have the assets to facilitate the Kevin Love trade to form an exciting Big Three in Cleveland. In 2019, Anthony Davis demanded a trade, and then shortly after, the Pelicans won the lottery to get the number 1 overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft to select Zion Williamson. 6 years later, the Dallas Mavericks get the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, just a few months after trading away Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, forget about the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft going to the Mavericks. The number 2 overall pick goes to the San Antonio Spurs. The number 2 overall pick is supposed to be Dylan Harper. Now, the San Antonio Spurs have De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle, so there's no chance that they're also going to select Dylan Harper. He doesn't fit on this this team, which means the San Antonio Spurs are in prime position to move that number 2 overall pick, potentially trade it to the Milwaukee Bucks, package it with the number 13 overall pick, maybe Jeremy Sohan, maybe some filler, maybe Stephon Castle, I don't necessarily know, and bring Giannis Antetokounmpo to the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, the Philadelphia 76ers got the number 3 overall pick. They can now draft a Paul George clone in Ace Bailey and team him up with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Jared McCain. I mean, this draft lottery went exactly how the NBA wanted it to go, so there's no question in my mind that there was some foul play here, especially when you consider the fact that the Luka Doncic trade never made sense to begin with, and that's coming from a Los Angeles Laker fan. But now that we got all the rigged stuff out of the way, we need to break down what this move means for the Dallas Mavericks, because Cooper Flagg changes everything for the Dallas Mavericks. After Nico Harrison became public enemy number 1 in Dallas, he was rewarded with the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft and the right to draft Cooper Flagg. I mean, how do you go from trading a generational superstar out of nowhere to being gifted a generational superstar out of nowhere? It makes absolutely no sense. Dallas came into the lottery with a 1.8% chance at the number 1 pick, which was the 11th amongst lottery teams. Yet somehow they jumped all the way to the top and captured Cooper Flagg, and it may have just changed the NBA forever. The Dallas Mavericks are about to build one of the scariest big threes in all of basketball, and it was practically handed to them. Prior to the Luka Doncic trade, the Mavericks were amongst the top teams in the Western Conference, looking to make it back to the NBA Finals after literally making it the year prior. However, after Nico Harrison gave us the biggest question mark in NBA history, things seemed to start going horribly for the Dallas Mavericks. Their brand new superstar, Anthony Davis, couldn't stay on the court. Kyrie Irving suffered a gruesome leg injury that ended his season, and it seemed like everybody else who could play meaningful minutes was out in some capacity as well. However, this unlucky Mavericks season that had fans and media alike calling their team cursed turned into one of the luckiest things we've ever seen in the NBA. Their record tanked, but their odds at a top pick increased at the same time. But despite this, they were never supposed to get the number 1 overall pick. Teams like the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards were putting on absolutely pathetic performances with a healthy squad. But for some reason, the basketball gods gave one of the best draft prospects the league has ever seen to a team that already has 2 superstars on the roster and could presumably have all 3 superstars ready by next March. It's absolutely insane, and this team is about to dominate.
Did you see this coming? I mean, you must have thought about where you might be going. You're going to a very kind of built team already. That's pretty unusual for what I think being the top pick.
Just think about it. The Dallas Mavericks were literally in the NBA Finals 1 year ago. And yes, that was with Luka Doncic, but Anthony Davis is still a winner. And just 365 days later, they're adding Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is a special basketball player, and pairing him alongside Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving is an automatic recipe for success. And let me show you a few clips just so you can see what I mean. The first thing I want to point out about Flagg is his uncanny ability to find space with the ball in his hands. This play right here against the number 2 seed at the time, Auburn, is a perfect example. Flagg is going to catch the ball with just a sliver of space on the left wing, but his athletic ability outmatches anyone at that level, and he just blows right by his defender with a huge power step off of the catch. Flagg then sees a help defender drop down low to stop him from getting an easy bucket, but Flagg knows that there's nobody behind him to contest a shot. So what does he do? He plants a mean pivot and spins backwards into so much space, giving him a wide open mid-range jumper, and he made it look easy. The next play though not only shows his ability to find space with the ball in his hands, but also his ability to create space for others. Flagg is going to work around the screener, going around the pick twice in order to force the switch that he wants. The switch defender makes a massive mistake here though. Instead of just straight up switching onto Flagg, giving him what he wants, he goes for the ball. And somehow that ended up even worse for him, because Cooper Flagg would make him look silly with a nasty behind the back, forcing his original defender to switch back onto him, leaving the screener wide open in the paint, where Flagg finds him with a nice dish over the defender's head. Cooper Flagg's offensive bag is insanely impressive at 6'9", and his 19.2 points and 4.2 assists per game as a freshman at Duke showed just that. But where Flagg stands above the rest of the class is his ability to do that type of stuff on offense while still being an elite defender on the other side of the ball. Cooper Flagg's defensive IQ is so high, and with that, he knows when it's his opportunity to shine. Like on this play, for example, he gives his guy a chance to stop the drive from the top of the key, and when he sees the ball handler with just enough space to make a lay-in, he swoops in out of nowhere and sends it all the way back to Raleigh. This is the exact type of player that Dallas needs to get back on track, and he's going to fit like a glove next to his 2 future Hall of Fame teammates.
I would love to know. I would love to know how Mavericks fans are feeling right now, because like maybe this wins you back as a fan. Maybe this washes away some of the sorrows.
But we need to address the elephant in the room. I touched on it a bit at the beginning of the video, but I'm about to bust out the tinfoil hat here for you guys. You cannot convince me that the NBA did not rig this lottery so that Nico Harrison could stop getting death threats. That on top of Adam Silver wanting to protect the fans of one of his most marketable and profitable franchises after the disappointment and anger they felt this season is evidence enough for me that Flag was always going to be a Maverick. This is also the only time in the 17 times that Dallas has had a lottery pick that they've jumped at all, let alone this much. Now, obviously, I'm not 100% saying that the lottery was rigged, but it all makes way too much sense. We've seen this time and time again. In 2008, the Chicago Bulls jumped from 1.7% odds to the first overall pick to select hometown boy Derrick Rose. In 2011, the year after LeBron left, the Cavaliers ended up with the #1 overall pick. The same happened with Chris Paul and the Pelicans the next year, and in 2019 when Anthony Davis forced his way out of New Orleans. I mean, LeBron James himself has commented on the fact that he thinks that the draft lottery might be rigged.
During the ball drop, during the lottery drop, Cleveland got the #1 pick. I just don't think that was.
This is definitely all hypothetical, but it's still also crazy to me. And I'm sure it's crazy to the 13 lottery teams that didn't end up with that pick, but especially the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz finished with the worst record in basketball last year, and were tied with the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets for the highest odds at the #1 overall pick at 14%. However, Utah would fall all the way down to the 5th pick as their historic lottery failures continue. Since the NBA introduced the lottery in 1985, the Jazz have not only never held the first overall pick, but they've never even jumped their pre-lottery rankings. Teams like the Utah Jazz are forced to sit in suffering while consistently successful teams like the Mavericks and the Spurs luck out with getting generational talents. It really makes me uneasy feeling that Adam Silver and the NBA prioritize the big market teams when it comes to the first overall pick each and every year. You could argue that the last small market team to be awarded the first overall pick was the Trailblazers in 2007 or Phoenix in 2018, but the Suns have always had decent success due to guys like Charles Barkley and Steve Nash. The Pelicans got it in 2012, but like I said earlier, that was fresh off of losing Chris Paul to the Clippers. The one you could argue the most is the Wizards getting it in 2010 when they took John Wall, but considering their history and the fact that they're literally based in the nation's capital, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're a small market team. The Jazz seem to be in basketball hell, and Cooper Flag 100% would have been the answer in Salt Lake City, but unfortunately they probably won't even get one of the big 4 players in this top heavy class in Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and VJ Edgecombe. It's rough, and Flag going to a team that very well could contend in their own conference makes it even worse. However, regardless of which team was going to end up taking him, Cooper Flag is going to be a star in this league. He's going to elevate everyone around him and make the Dallas Mavericks a contending franchise again. And I wouldn't be surprised if he were making all-star teams by year 2. That's how good this kid is. Any team would be lucky to have a player like Flag. It just happened to be the Dallas Mavericks who got the luck of the draw with this one. That is, unless they were to trade away this pick for an aging superstar, because that wouldn't be the first time Nico Harrison has traded away a generational talent for no good reason at all. If, and for Mavericks fans' sake, I hope when Flag's name is called as a Maverick, it might save Nico Harrison's job. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is yet to be seen. But the one thing I do know is that Nico Harrison did nothing to acquire this pick. Whether you think it was pure luck or if it was rigged, Nico Harrison had no effect on the outcome of the lottery. So I really hope that the Dallas Mavericks front office makes the right decision here, because you can't throw away a talent like Cooper Flag when he's 25 years old, the same way that you couldn't throw away a talent like Luka Doncic when he was 25 years old. They're the same caliber of prospect, and Flag will show the world that the day he steps on an NBA court. Now, for those of you guys that want to know how this affects the rest of the NBA, we made a completely separate video on Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's about to get traded. It's signed, sealed, and delivered. There's absolutely no question in my mind that it's happening. And we have an idea of what team he's going to get traded to. I made a completely separate video on that, and I left it in the end screen, and I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.